right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and ghouls, children of all ages, angels, demons, and everything in between. Welcome back to Behind the Whiskers.
I wasn't ready.
The podcast where we discuss the behind-the-scenes aspects of the Twisted Whiskers Sideshow as it continues to grow as a project. He's still not ready. And, I'm your host, Mitchell Fink, and...
I'm Holly Clinton. I was waiting for my cue, and you gave me multiple cues, and I was not there.
I didn't really know what the plan was. I figured we'd just start talking and go from there. Today, we're going to talk to you about a special extracurricular trip that the Twisted Whisker Entertainment Gang made. The four bodies that happened to be in that trip, consisting of myself, Joseph Harp, LaRon Ellis, and David Atlas, as we went to Florida to do AV tech work for a really cool convention that's up and coming called InfinityCon. Great man runs that event. He's got a hell of a vision, and we go down there to work with him twice a year. He does an event, one in Gainesville and one in Tallahassee. Super old school nerd convention with a big focus on the family-oriented sides of that. In the midst of that trip, we took a 2-hour hop from Gainesville to Gibsonton, Florida, which is broadly understood to be the historic wintering grounds for most carnival workers. And to be sure, the rumors are true. If you drive through Gibsonton, the smile on my face, grinning ear to ear, as I saw a couple of laid-up Ferris wheels collapsed, like new, not derelict, parked in people's yards. Because it used to be that they would be privately owned, and to some degree it's still this way, and then a section of the lot is purchased, and you operate and maintain your own ride and charge tickets for it.
I can imagine the cheesy nerd grin of the young red-headed Mitchell showing as he just cruises through seeing all these Ferris wheels.
Oh, it was incredible. It was exactly what I wanted it to be. And the place that we were really going to, in Gibsonton, was not to gawk at the people and the things in their yards, fun as it might be. It was to go check out the Carnival World Museum, which is a
54,000 square foot, just complex of all things sideshow, showman, carnival, anything that our little nerd minds can imagine.
It was really, really cool. And we got to go in and browse hundreds upon hundreds of artifacts and antique posters, games stretching all the way back to things from the 1800s. There was a library.
1700s, apparently. 1793. There's accounts that the first American circus is credited to a John Bill Ricketts in 1793, and the first traveling carnival made its appearance in 1864 in the form of a traveling carousel. That's really freaking cool.
It is a really long and storied history that we haven't really talked a lot about on the air. I got some books that I'm digesting right now that are written by a carny who has set out to interview and try to preserve what he sees as dying art. Not so much just specifically sideshow, but the whole broad enchilada of the carnival lot.
Yeah.
And some of the stories, as they would say, cutting up jackpots, which is a phrase essentially, telling stories that may be a little bit grandiose, but stories from the road, things like that he's collected, including a really, really great history of a couple of different simultaneous starts and misstarts of the modern carnival business as we see it now at a state fairgrounds. Because ironically, agricultural fairs were the worst place to go because they had no money. Oh. And so they set up a lot of community fairs, like the referencing there, that's more akin to Swansboro's Mullet Festival, or there's a
mullet, like the hairstyle,
yes,
or the
Swansboro
fish?
has both, unfortunately. Raleigh does hopscotch downtown, which is a big to-do with stages and things and vendors. But that was the original home of that sort of entertainment. getting right into the things we saw, outside the museum, there sits several wagons, not horse-drawn inherently. These would have been wagons that would have been loaded on train cars. So then they could be pulled off and drawn by a mule or a tractor as time proceeded, or a truck. But to ship stuff by train, they would roll these up on flat cars in a train, and then they would just roll the whole wagon off, kit and caboodle. And outside the museum, some tremendous hand-painted art on the sides of them. Not glitzy like circuses, but still beautiful. Lots of animals in the pictures, that kind of exciting thing. And man, there were just so many amazing objects, which the beauty of a trip like this, for someone like me who deals largely in this case with production design, especially when I'm trying to emulate an era of time, which is really hard to track, because if you Google what did Ferris wheels look like in 1864, okay, you're not going to probably get a picture that's exactly what you asked for, and you're not going to see enough of them spread out over commonality, essentially creating the picture in the mind of, we're going to romance this object a little bit because I don't have money to build 5 of these to talk about why they're all 5 different. So I need to build one Ferris wheel that emulates the look of what that felt like in a vintage time. This museum is great for that because they have, Ferris wheels, probably a bad option for this, but posters in specific. Years and years of old canvas posters, which is one of our next projects to kind of tackle. And why this was important is because the internet is terrible at cataloging Carnival history. There are some websites that really stick out that are great, but you'll get like 3 good pictures and they won't be of what you wanted. And you're going to be like, that's great, I'll add that to the information bank. But also, I need to be able to see these objects, touch these objects, to really understand how they were built and why they were built, because we're playing with trying to recreate technology that's dead and gone. The way to make a sideshow poster now would be to have it printed on vinyl, stitched, and be done with it. Whereas back then, they're stretching actual natural fiber canvases. They're having to size them with stuff to make them kind of stiff and paintable, putting leather tabs on the corners. Like, there's a whole different train of thought about how to produce giant signage that today doesn't exist, which means there are no, there's no, Molly Homemaker recipe for how to pop out a damn sideshow poster.
No DIY, get it done in your backyard sort of deal.
Tutorial, right? You're not going to find that. And so what we're faced with as people that are trying to do kind of a historic style of theater and creating this love letter to vintage American sideshow is we need to be in a space filled with these objects and take as many pictures as possible. So I guess what I'm going to do, for our audience who cannot see what we're looking at, I'm going to pick a couple of pictures just for the sake of brevity. And as I talk to Harley about them, can we put these in the show notes? Is that a possibility?
I can't put them in the show notes, but I can throw them up on Instagram with the announcement of the episode airing.
Okay, and do it so they can flip through. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. My sad Luddite self reigns supreme. Okay, so first up is a game that I don't totally understand, but is a very common, spin the wheel game that they had out in their front lobby. And what is miraculous about this is you look at the detail on this, this beautiful, and this one is set up with dominoes as your,
It almost looks like a vintage roulette wheel that's been turned vertical.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, but the incredible craftsmanship involved with something that's clearly homemade, but also is homemade really beautifully.
Homemade by somebody that has some degree of knowledge of what they're doing.
Yeah, some of the art in here. Here's one of the posters. This is kind of tucked in the back. It has some unfortunate racist caricature on it. But this is for a Punch and Judy show, which is a super, super old school puppet show.
Yeah.
But this was their sideshow banner for it, complete with scrolling the picture I needed, which is how are the corners done. And now I know.
The leather tabs and hooks and rings and
pretty damn close to what we did, mostly based on instinct, on the big Twisted Whiskers Sideshow banner.
Yeah.
That was cool. Here's a picture of the show. And obviously got a little TV in front to emulate what the show would look like.
I love the little decorations on the top there. It's basically like a wine red background with some little gold, floral, almost pinstripey designs. Looks really cool. Very up my alley in terms of style of art.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of very beautiful, because everything here is about opulence and being eye-catching. And doing so with very, very little money. At the bottom of this puppet show is some of so much hand-painted lettering. And a lot of this stuff would have been free-handed, not stenciled, by sign painters, which is also a kind of dying trade, unfortunately. There was a big focus at the museum on showgirls. That seems to be more than half. We hear that Harley may be debuting a new act sometime soon, so you guys may get a taste of that. There's going to be a lot of feathers.
You funny joker, mate.
Let's see what else he did. Yeah, see, that could be you, Harley.
That will not be me.
Any one of these three outfits could be Harley.
Absolutely not. For reference, my spouse is sitting in the room with us as well.
And she's violently nodding yes.
Absolutely not.
They are saying yes.
Absolutely not.
All right, we'll talk about it.
Will we?
Yeah. One of the really cool exhibits they had in this museum were a series of mummies that were taken around. And what is so funny about this is, like, the setup's great, the swing doors to cover it so it's transportable, like everything about this. It's a two-headed mummy. Ho, 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 ho. Zoom in, and you start to notice she's a little waxy because it's bullshit. But to most people, it's like, box, and it's kind of crowded in there, and the glass is dirty. But if you zoom in on the sign, let's see if I got another picture of just the sign. The sign on the mummy, the Princess Luxuria, two-headed woman of the Nile, reputed to be from the times of the pharaohs of Egypt, excavated by renowned archaeologist Dr. James Lawn of Minneapolis, Maryland, and verified by Dr. Lauren Foley of Muncie, Indiana. A World of Wonders exclusive representation. And then in really, really tiny font, at the bottom of all of that, it says, Original in Cairo Museum of Antiquities. So you get, like, drawn in, you're like, whoa, this is so cool. And the signage, if you just read it at a glance, you're like, wow, I saw a real mummy today. But then you, like, read the fine print and you find out that...
When you actually go in and take a close-up look at it, you start to notice the smoke and mirrors that have been put on.
Oh, yeah. This one I thought was really, really funny. There's a help wanted sign that I want to put out. For a fat man, an evil dwarf, a wolf boy, and a Viking giant. See you inside. Now hiring. And we were debating whether or not the sign was meant sincerely or if it was simply just part of the look.
Well, I can fill two of those categories. I'll be your fat man and Viking giant.
Oh, you hear that now, folks. We only got two other categories to be hired into. So if anybody knows any evil dwarfs or wolf... Nope, we've got a wolf boy. So any evil dwarves would like to apply... we would love to have you.
We'd love to have you chase Mitch around because he would be absolutely terrified.
Probably. This was just another mummy that they saw. This one is one of yours. Australia's Little People.
Yeah. We had some small native tribes in Australia, and I don't mean as in few people, as in small stature people.
Yeah.
It was very diverse, the different types of natives you'd find over there. A lot of cool art there as well. I think you'd enjoy
cool native art.
Some of that art. I'd love to get a actual handmade didgeridoo with all the
that would be cool.
On it.
There was another sign that we saw, and this one we'll just read. I don't know if we'll put it in the post. Don't miss it at the fair with Royal American Shows, which was a huge carnival. Just ignore my phone beeping. Background. A huge touring carnival company. There were several. One of which that still exists today is Straits Shows, Strates, and some of their old stuff was in there. They still do carnival midways, but they've cut all the extra trappings out of it. It's just rides now because that's what they find people pay for. But this is an advertisement for a really classic sideshow gag or blow-off. And the blow-off at the end of a sideshow we've talked about before is kind of the way you get this crowd of people that are really invested in seeing these 10 performers or 10 oddities or whatever. You need to get them out of the tent and you want to squeeze them for an extra nickel. So you say, hey, All right, folks, the show's over. And they're like, what? Because it probably wasn't as long as they paid for. And then you say, I've got something extra special for our discerning audience members to see. And that something is going to cost you 5 extra cents. But you're not going to want to miss it. Here's the something. Here's what it is. Come see the strange, the weird stuff, the whatever. And then they all flock over to the back corner of the tin, or it's like hidden behind a divider, and you've now effectively removed the audience to make more space for new audience and made more money on the transition. And anybody who doesn't pay the extra nickel just looks like a schmuck. So, it's a pretty solid gag. There are lots of varieties of these kind of blow-offs. Everything from three-legged dogs or horses to, strange or really peculiar performer with some sort of medical anomaly to several different gags, one of which is called the blade box routine, which we've got a picture of one of those. I'll show you in here somewhere.
Yeah.
And the other one would be to do the, Zambora Gorilla Girl act. And so what you do is you take this really pretty Amazonian woman, and she's essentially just a burlesque dancer, gets up there on the stage, and, ooh, look, I'm so pretty. And in reality, what she's standing in front of, behind...
We know direction.
Whatever. Anyway, there's a giant piece of glass that's a two-way mirror, and with some clever lighting tricks, you could have a second performer dressed as a gorilla off in the wings of the stage, where the audience cannot see them, and the lights begin to strobe ominously back and forth as the girl in front of your eyes transforms into a gorilla, and then the lights black out, the girl and the gorilla swap places, and she usually does this inside of a cage, because then what happens is the lights begin to strobe in the room. It is now apparent there is a gorilla on stage, and that seems to be a problem for your standing room only audience, because the gorilla pushes the bars of the cage over, they slam down, and the gorilla hops in the audience and chases them all out of the damn tent. And it's super classic, silly gag, but was something that people would get really excited to pay for. And this was just a vintage sign reading, "Stage full of horror, strange, horrible. See her change into a gorilla direct from the jungles of Africa." And just goofy, kind of silly, But
a lot of fun.
But a lot of fun. They had several original costumes from different performers that were in this museum, to include one that was on some Siamese twins. They had a couple original, there's original MC's costume, which is pretty cool. Really a red tailcoat.
Yeah.
And what else?
Red and sparkly.
Red and sparkly. This was cool. There was an exhibit that is a two-nosed cow that is kind of honestly horrific to look at. But the cow and its skull and its badly mounted taxidermy was then put in a hand-painted box with the caption, "She died of an old age. A neat trick for a cow." Some of this stuff is really witty and just bizarre, right? Bizarre. These are original tent spikes for...
Those are heavy duty.
Oh yeah, man. They're easily the size of my leg.
Jeez.
Yeah, they had an original Showman's... Oh, this is kind of cool. So, I don't know that this is going to be as translating as entertaining, just listening to us talk about my phone that the audience can't see, but if you're at home, just follow along and scroll through the pictures. You'll work it out. This is a stake puller. It's got 2 little carriage wheels and a chain. So you can wrap the chain around it and then use the wheels as an axis to rip the stake out of the ground.
Oh, very cool.
We need a couple of those.
Yeah, we do. We have plenty of trouble with stakes and ropes and all types of fittings and fixings.
Here we go. Okay, so this is a blade box, which is a super... There's a guy who does another podcast called Ballycast, which we recommend. It's well worth a listen. He says some really interesting and goofy stuff, plays all sorts of interesting music, and his wife, I think, comes on every episode. They do one a month to talk about Carnival food recipes. I can't remember the name of the host, but at any rate, he is actually selling plans for Vintage Blade Box, which essentially is this gag where you're enticing the audience to look at a scantily clad woman. That's the bit. And what she has to do is you have a performer that's usually been on the stage already, maybe from a girly show or something, and she has a curtained off area that she has to step behind, and the talker for the bit gets up and goes, "All right, so now this woman is going to have to remove her costume to be able to fit inside of this box. And for 5 cents, you can see her. And, like, the undertone is you're seeing this person contort themselves around all these blades in this box, but that's not what you're selling.
No.
And it's common enough that the same jokes are told. This is just a lot of different signage. This is a cool truck with, again, beautiful, beautiful signage.
Yeah, that is really nicely done.
Interesting box. Found there from Magician. So I took some videos of some of their chasing lights because they had a lot of old school incandescent features, which is very much how our show is lit. And some of the stuff would take us some time to build, but with modern computing technology, getting them to chase would be easy.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be great to add.
I
think add something like that to our show sign would be really nice.
It would be nice. I think a little bit more formal. There were a couple of huge posters. So this poster in this picture here, this is Palace of Wonders. Wait, nope, wrong poster. Oh, here we go. This is a 2-story tall poster for this Viking giant character.
Jeez.
And in reality, he's a real man, and his costume is later on in the slideshow here somewhere. There were several posters of him. Lots of tickets. They had walls, collections of old school tickets, which was neat. Concessionaire passes, which are really neat because those are essentially the word concessions. Excuse me. Oh. The word concessions comes from making a concession, which in a bargain is you give something up.
Yeah.
And you could get concessions of a carnival lot. So the carnival's paid for the advertising and the infrastructure and all this stuff. And concessionaires were the men and women who would bring offerings onto the lot to then, sort of like buying a table at a craft fair. Same sort of concept. This is a concessionaire's pass, which would have been a license issued to a person to be on the carnival lot.
Sort of like getting a booth at a convention or something.
Exactly the same. Exactly the same. There was definitely a blend of circusy art and less refined but more whimsical carnival art. And they are two very different things, I should say, that had a mixture between them of not only art styles but sometimes duplicitous purposes. There are circuses that would have Ferris wheels. Yeah. There were circuses hired for the fair. Circuses also commonly had a sideshow, which is kind of there on their little midway, which was smaller than you do for a big state fair now, but was still available for people to entertain themselves with while waiting for the main event or main attraction. So you see a blending of some of these art styles, but in particular, there were some really beautiful pieces of carved art. Sorry, folks, it's getting late over here. Of carved art from carousels. And they talked about the tools that people at the time were using to carve these beautiful wooden horses.
Now, I've tried carving wood, chisel and hammer, whatever. It is damn difficult. I thank modern ingenuity for the Dremel tool.
Well, it helps if your tools are sharp. That's a good first start.
Yeah.
But all in all, they had incredible skill, and they were passing it down from like generation to generation, which is really, really cool. And unfortunately, it's all pretty much lost. There are like 4 or 5 major makers that are identified of carousel horses, and then of course the nerdier of the carousel collectors. Pretty much they're down to just collecting horses at this point.
Yeah.
Sometimes those horses will sell for 5-6 figures if they're found in various conditions.
We need to go and find some old rundown sheds and ask the owners if we can rummage through them for crap.
I don't know if you'd find a carousel horse. Those people are vicious. This was an exhibit. And this one, folks, you definitely want to look up at the Instagram. It was called the Mickey Mouse Circus. So they boldly and brazenly, with absolute no respect paid to Disney for this. People knew Mickey Mouse was, they were excited about it. They had a little tiny, they'd have like a tent that was filled with all of these little circus-type contraptions and, planks and seesaws and little ropey things.
Basically an obstacle course for rodent.
Yeah, and then they would put like 10, 15 mice in there, feed them well, and people could buy a ticket to go in and watch. And what they said is that this was the single most interesting seller to people. The people were all about this. And I could believe it because they're really cute.
I mean, as an owner of hamsters and gerbils previously, it's so much fun watching them do dumb shit around their cage. And so I can understand why that would sell so damn well.
The Mickey Mouse Circus. This is the entrance, is a pretty prominent piece in their exhibit, to what was originally an arcade.
Okay.
A traveling arcade. Because at a certain time, even folks didn't have, necessarily in rural towns, access to something like an arcade. Especially in the early days of gaming. But there it is in action.
It's beautiful.
Very busy. And they did some really interesting things that our friend Joe pointed out in terms of not having a lot of money. Hand painting was not inexpensive, but it wasn't Sistine Chapel expensive.
Yeah.
Being a painter on a carnival lot was a common thing, and a lot of times these people had to paint and upkeep their own stuff because it's that old adage about, like, if you're poor and you want nice shit, you have to find other people's broken shit that was once nice and then fix it.
Yeah.
Which is this show in a nutshell.
Definitely.
They covered a lot of surfaces in mirrors with single bulbs because the mirrors reflect the lights bouncing all around the midway, and I thought that was really clever. They had an antique Ferris wheel complete with terrifying dummies that would have originally been operated off of like a Model T or Model A engine.
Okay.
By belt that would have driven it. They've changed it over to an electric motor now, but the thing is actually spinning inside their damn museum.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I would be fighting the urge to go and just try and jump onto one of the seats and take a ride.
And see how quickly the carnies come out of the back to beat you up to save their museum.
Yeah, exactly.
They probably got like a box of 10 of them back there somewhere that are just like, the anti-burglar.
Not even burglar, just anti, like, get off my frickin' ride people.
Ready to go. The other really cool thing that we got to see there was, and I didn't catch a deer anywhere on it, this is what would be an example of like a showman's office, and sometimes you still find these up for sale.
Okay.
There are people that will restore them, kind of in the same market as they'll sell Romany wagons.
Yeah.
People will find old ones and usually shove it in a barn somewhere and repair it. This is one that was donated to the museum. It was the Royal American Show's Publicity and Public Relations Department. So this would have been an office people could have walked into. And inside of this... Going the right way? Hold on. Sorry, I've been confused. Okay, so inside of this is like still original paperwork from the show.
Bundles of paperwork, like a whole cupboard full of different papers.
Tickets in the whole nine, admission tickets, carnival game tickets, all sorts of stuff, and it even had an antique air conditioner in it. It was pretty wild.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Let's see, what else? There were posters abound everywhere. This was an interesting find. So, in terms of power distribution for a carnival, and I've had some stagehand friends that have gone to what are ostensibly third world countries.
Yeah.
In terms of their electrical infrastructure, and they still do stuff like this. What I believe to be old wives' tale is that they were supposedly using candy apple skewers to take wires and punch them down into bus bars to hook up various parts of, rather than plugging something in, because plugs are expensive, a carnival's wiring infrastructure. So at a certain point, Showman's generators today, and I'm bouncing all over the place here, most carnivals can produce enough power, like a small city.
Yeah, I would believe it.
And they've got to send electricity really far, which requires a lot of complicated math to make sure that you're not going to underserve what are oftentimes no longer diesel, but are electric engines for rides.
Yeah.
And some of them are still diesel, some of them are still actual engines for heavier lifting, but by and large it's powered three-phase electricity objects. And they had this open box that was a PD or power distribution box for the traveling show, complete with their supposed candy apple sticks. So my friends that have seen power distribution done like this in other places and theaters said that it is wooden dowels. The problem with this methodology is that if you don't get enough of the copper from the wire buried in the bus bar, it will get very hot very quickly and
just
catch
burn it.
very on fire. Yes.
Yeah. very dangerous and not the type of electrical circuits we want to run.
No. This was the tire from that wagon.
That's really pretty, actually.
They had a habit of painting all sorts of things that were just absolutely, absolutely beautiful. There also were a number of banners that listed guaranteed real and then a price. So that if you could debunk its validity, even though a lot of the oddities that were shown in these carnivals, I mean, how many two-headed human babies consumably...
It had to be a rare occurrence.
Right, and then also you've got to manage, and as time went on, and it became kind of frowned upon to just randomly display human body parts everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. They, more and more gaffes hit the scene. But the offering of money, because $500 in today's money really isn't a lot.
No.
It's like a car payment. But $500 in 1950s money.
That was a lot.
A lot of money. What else we had here?
Could damn near buy a house.
This was a cute poster. Nightmare Alley. Featuring the mummy of Maria O'Day, preserved after death in Utah's Great Salt Lake. $10,000, if not a real human body. How precisely would you verify that it wasn't real?
I mean, for 10 grand,
You'd be willing to try?
I'd be willing to try.
Let's see what else we have.
I'd bring out the full freaking forensics kit and just go to town trying to figure it the hell out.
Oh, this is the Viking giant. His supposed real costume, and he is huge. I'm trying to see, if there's a size reference somewhere in there. That's the stairwell to the second story.
Actually, like, surprisingly accurate for a Viking outfit. A lot of modern outfits in terms of the Vikings are over the top with straps and buckles and bullshit, and that's quite historically precise.
For what it is, in this context, I agree. There were a number of costume pieces that they had hung up to take a look at, and these things were just absolutely resplendent with all sorts of gems and jewels. And
bedazzled to the nines.
Oh, yeah. The greater and more interesting part of our visit to the museum, because there are so many pictures, and I could spend another hour just haphazardly talking to Harley about all the things that I saw, was that they had a couple of models upstairs. Big, old-school style, like railway, think model railroad models of different Carnival midways.
Oh, that's really cool.
It is really, really cool. And it was tough to get pictures because the sun was at a funky angle. But, like, this is the midway with all the games in it. Did find out, from talking to the curator, that a lot of the games have disappeared because of gambling laws. Because
makes sense.
Technically, it's gambling.
Yes.
And so you now basically have to guarantee a prize. And I think that there's some, like, kind of loopholes in that. But that is why we have seen such a dramatic decrease in the number of games on a Carnival Midway. Because it's basically, you're paying $5
Yeah.
to get something valued at $5 or less. But you're also going to get to play a game.
Yeah.
But the end result has to be guaranteed. Which is kind of a shame because it takes some of the fun out of it. But they did have a number of really cool sideshow dioramas that included their banner lines and what they would have looked like. And these are different shows.
We should build one of these little, like, sideshow dioramas.
I think that would be neat. I think that would be really, really neat.
I think it'd be a lot of fun.
So, in these models, one of the consistent threads is actually the inconsistency of the presentations of the banner line for the sideshows.
Okay.
They're much bigger than the one we're doing, but we're actually not far off the right track with where we are. So I can find, there was a really good one, really, really old one. All right, folks, we took a dramatic pause here as we had folks come into the recording studio with us. There is far too much rambling for us to keep this within a timely episode length. So what we're going to do is we're going to split this into 2 episodes, and how we're going to hook you to come back so that you can tell them what you did here, not what you could have heard, is we're going to cliffhanger you on the fact that after we toured the museum, the curator of the museum, who is an awesome guy, definitely with it, he came and talked to us for almost half an hour, bribing us with popcorn, and one of his buddies pulled his own calliope out and played it for us. And that calliope has MIDI. He can put an SD card in it and play whatever kind of music he wants.
That's
It was
really
incredible.
cool.
But more about that on the next episode. Thanks for signing up to get on this very strange bandwagon, pun intended. And I've been Mitchell Fink.
I'm Holly Clinton.
See you guys next time. Ciao.